A lesser-known piece of media early on in Mario's popularity were these choose-your-own-adventure books that were put out for the series. These were all just typical lighthearted kid stuff. However, there was one that seems to be lost through all of history and information, that was much darker than all the others you'd expect to be put out. I haven't been able to see anything about this, but I remember owning it as a kid. I don't remember what happened to it, or where it went on its own, but I remember it vividly. It was titled Super Mario Choose Your Own Adventure, Escape from Koopa's Keep. This is what I remember reading back then. It started out as normal. Mario, Luigi, the princess, Toad, and the king of the Mushroom Kingdom, a character who would frequently appear in these types of books, assuming he originates from one of the guys from Mario 3. They were all wandering around the grocery store talking. Mario was expressing his excitement to pick out certain items, like the pepperoni cheesecake and the garlic ice cream, and Luigi was like, Mario, haven't you ever thought about eating a rutabaga instead or something? The princess then chimed in with giving them an attitude for both having poor diets, and giving her father further sass on top of it. Eventually they all went to the checkout aisle. However, the clerk there was clearly King Koopa in an apron and a fake mustache, and trying to pause them like, howdy, and eventually, though, he leaped out of the checkout spot, and he grabbed the king and ran off. The group panicked, realizing that King Koopa was here with another scheme, and yelling at him to let go. A prompt then appears in the book, as King Koopa tosses a Rubik's Cube at the brothers, and he's like, solve this and the king will be free. What then lists out is a complicated diagram explaining how to use the Rubik's Cube in book form, and instructing the reader of how exactly to move each row and square and column, and eventually telling them to choose a page based on their answer. Well, after fiddling with this for a bit, I eventually went to a page, and upon opening up, it immediately starts with King Koopa saying, wrong! He then takes the king's head and starts snapping it. The book describes the king painfully yelling as his neck starts crunching and his head twists before his eyes go blank and a spurt of blood comes out. Coiling cannolis! King Koopa just killed the king! Peach then screams for her dad and tries to dart at King Koopa to avenge and stop him. However, everything then goes black, and all the characters scream as it then goes to the next page. Mario wakes up alone, torn up, inside a dingy cell, blood everywhere. His blood most likely, as it's fresh and wet. And he's like, oh, ooh. He's like, Luigi, princess, other guy, where is everyone? I've lost them. Mario then has to make his way off the cell and go out on his own and try to reunite with everyone. It's at this point where the book begins to use much more aggressive language and becomes even more disturbing. There's a switch there that tells the reader to choose whether or not they want to press it. Press yes, and a giant weight then falls down, crushing Mario, cutting off his scream as he turns to a bloody splat mess. Game over, go back. However, upon going back, I noticed that there's an extra line of dialogue added of Mario screaming somehow, and continuing on, this time not pressing the switch. Eventually, Mario finds an open room, and one of the Koopalings, Lemmy, which the book describes as being disgusting, says, "Oh, Mario, you're gonna like this," and then a gate opens up and the princess runs out with a blindfold over her eyes and 2 red bloody circles where her eyes should be holes, implying they were removed. The princess has gone mad, accusing everyone of killing her father, and she's like, "Is that you? Where are you?" And she then runs at Mario with a giant wrench, and Mario's like, "Princess, please! It's me, Mario!" And the princess instead just blindly swings at him, and the wrench, it grabs onto Mario's pingor, and the princess twitches it, and Mario lets out an "ooh" as his penis snaps, being removed. And then the princess takes a giant screwdriver and drives it into Mario's skull, who then starts gasping in pain for breath, taking critical damage. Mario eventually has to shake this off and fight the princess. Fortunately, if you have enough coins, Mario can manage to end up killing the princess out of survival. Mario afterwards looks down for a while, just saying "princess" and sobs a bit. The book then says several blank pages of Mario just standing there grieving. Eventually, he continues on, going through a dark, dirty corridor, very tight in space. And it's at this point where I noticed that the book's pages seem to have been getting darker, and it almost looked like there were dark red stains of them, resembling a hyper-realistic blood, and these would gather more and more, get more deeply soaked into the pages as the story went on. Eventually, Mario looks down at a small opening in the hallway, and he sees Toad, bound and gagged, trying to let out a scream like, "Arr! Arr!" And Mario's like, "Leaping lasagna, what are they going to do to Toad?" And out comes, as the book would say verbatim, disgusting fucking revolting Ludwig comes out giggling as he then takes a potato peeler and starts taking off pieces of skin from Toad's arm when he's like, "Aah!" And Ludwig, while laughing madly, "Ooh!" and starts eating the pieces of flesh, and eventually Mario tries to jump in to stop this and save Toad. However, Ludwig catches him and is like, "I'm going to do this then," and eventually it's shown what seems to be a giant automatic peeler with a drill-like instrument attached to it, and Ludwig then sticks it into Toad's head, penetrating top first through his mushroom head, and Toad screams, and the machine turns on and starts twisting and turning and spiraling as blood flies everywhere, splatting, and Toad screams as he is thrown apart by the giant machine. Mario's like, "Well, you no good turtle," and he tries to jump in. However, Ludwig then tricks Mario into landing where the machine is, and the drill goes down Mario's mouth, throat first. And then what happens is an incredibly detailed, gruesome description of the machine pulling out Mario's organs and ripping them all apart through his mouth as Mario screams and bleeds off his face. Eventually, his eyes shoot out. Finally, death. Then Mario, the book, it restarts before Mario leaps into the machine. This time, just focusing his attention onto Ludwig from afar. Mario chases after Ludwig, who giggles and hides behind a wall, and Ludwig shows Mario a picture of chain chomps, telling him to count how many are there without eyes, as if mocking him. Fortunately, guessing it right, Mario kicks the wall down, crushing Ludwig behind it, defeating him. Mario then turns over to Toad, now just an unrecognizable red pulp, and he shakes his head. He's like, I got to move on and find Luigi. And it was then when I realized Toad's skin, what I was holding, how the book felt. The book was binded by Toad's skin. Mario continues, and he finds an area to leap across in the book. It's like, have you found the Golden Springs? And it's like, if not, go to this page. What transpires is Mario attempting to leap, only to not make it and fall down a tall pit and land face first into a pile of spikes, and his yell is cut off as blood splats on him. You must go back. However, when I returned to before the jump, this time Mario was just sobbing to himself for a bit. At this point, he said, I can remember every death that happens. I still feel the stings of those spikes. I remember softly tearing up myself a bit at this point in the story. Mario then had to go down several loops in order to find the shoes, reliving death after death, eventually ending up back where he once was, this time able to cross the gap with the springs. Finally, Mario goes through a large door, and there he sees what appears to be a royal throne room, and Luigi is there all tied up to a chair, and Mario wants to approach Luigi, but then he's like, Mario, no! It's a trap! Only then, for two more Koopalings to jump up and appear behind Luigi. They're like, no, don't get any closer! And the book prompts, like, should Mario take another step? And to choosing yes, they then take a knife and slit Luigi's throat, who then starts gagging a bit, spitting up some blood. Luigi's like, Mario, I told you. And Mario is like, holy mama meatballs, let go of my brother. And eventually the Koopalings then taunt Mario more, and Bowser comes up holding a shotgun, and he's like, you got your last chance, spaghetti sucker. And he's like, watch this, Mario. And he puts the shotgun up to Luigi's stomach and fires it, and Luigi's like, oh, rolling raviolis! And Luigi, still keeping it alive, starts panting weakly, and he's like, leave now or else Luigi gets it. Mario, of course, was ready to fight instead. However, King Koopa was like, suit yourself, and he opens up a pit of fire, dropping Luigi in it, who screams his last breath before desisting. Mario was a wreck at this point, shaking his fist and cursing out King Koopa, that fucking asshole. And Koopa is like, you wanna face me, Mario? You can't beat Koopa Key. And Mario then realized that he would have to become a Super Spaghetti if he wants to defeat King Koopa. The book then asks, should Mario try to fight Koopa now? And a page number to choose yes or no. Deciding to say yes, Mario then begins to scream and start powering up as he tries to go into his full power form. Mario says, now you are going to die. And he starts screaming, and a barrier of key surrounds him as Mario's clothes are up, and he becomes incredibly buff, trying to reach 100%. However, this proves to be too much to his body, as Mario can't control it, as his veins start bulging out and his flesh rips open and blood starts out as his veins and muscles explode, and Mario begins screaming in pain as he pushes himself too far. Eventually, he stops, a complete bloody mess, exhausted, hardly able to even stand anymore. King Koopa then says, nice try, marinated meatball, and he then darts at Mario and starts smacking this tail and punching the shit off him, and effortlessly beats Mario to death. They have to go back. This time, the book says Mario should try something else. Turn to page 666. Mario then decides to run for it as Koopa and the Koopalings chase after him, and they're like, get that pesky plumber! Mario leaps over danger and swings as he tries to avoid them. Traps set off, killing a couple of the Koopalings as they aimlessly rush towards Mario. Koopa becomes more annoyed as this happens and growls and ups his speed, chasing after Mario. Finally, though, as all hope seems to be lost, Mario finds the item that he's been looking for in the book, the gun. King Koopa then sprints at Mario, and the book screams at the reader, hurry, turn the page! Just as Koopa's about to get Mario, he quickly fires the gun in a panic, aimless, but seeming to hit Koopa successfully. Koopa holds his chest, gasping, bleeding off his mouth, and, darn you, Mario! I swear this isn't over. I'll curse and haunt you from the gates of hell, pointing at him as the book says with his filthy fucking finger. King Koopa then collapses, dead. Mario gets up, catching his breath, and he says, I've won, but at what cost? And he then slowly walks out there, exiting into the sunlight, and the book says, game over, you win, but at what cost? If anyone knows where to find the copies of these books, I don't know if they were destroyed or forbidden or came from hell themselves or what, but please, please help me, let me know. It's the stupidest thing ever.